Good morning, Internet! Silence! Isn't that just so cool, Internet? Isn't that amazing? I'm sure you've probably all seen the LOST-SAGA MSL introduction before, but nevertheless, I think that's the best one they've done so far. But well, this sort of last 2 years or so, definitely the best one they've done so far. You know, much better than that one with the light bulb. And I don't really like the sort of the real world ones. You know, when you've got like battle cruisers floating over the skyline of Korea. I think that's a bit kitsch, to be honest, Internet. Anyway, LOST-SAGA versus Canata is what you're looking at. LOST-SAGA, Terran player for MBCgame, Canata, Terran player for SKT1. Now, some of you will immediately be reaching for your close window button. Do not do this, Internet, because I'm sure you can know this is a very short TVT, and a lot of people find mirror matches like pulling teeth. I'm one of them, don't particularly enjoy them, but I know you're supposed to go for a start. You're supposed to ignore the length of the video as if you don't realise that this is a part 1 of 1 and that it's, you know, under 10 minutes long, 1 moment 0. But as I always say, I like to give my audience just that little bit of credibility to have them realise, oh yeah, this is going to be quite a short match. And especially for a TVT, it's very short. You know, if this was a ZVZ, you could understand it being this short. But the point is, because it's this short, we're probably going to see something interesting. And I haven't watched this. I usually do cheat and watch them before, I will admit that now. But this is my live first time round because I want to see who's going to go for the thing that's risky. So, Canata is the yellow player at the southward position, and LOST-SAGA is in purple at the north. LOST-SAGA is the weaker player on paper, so therefore it would be the done thing that he would be the one that would go for something risky. However, of course, we have seen a lot of times recently where the stronger player has actually gone for the cheese in a way to sort of psych out their opponent, you know, thinking, well, they think I'm just going to go for the stronger build, so I'm in fact going to do the cheese. And so, a lot of times we have seen the cheese fail recently. So, you know, anything could happen basically. So let's talk about the player stats. First of all, I want to talk about the yellow Terran Canata for SKT1. First of all, I think he has the advantage because he can practice against better Terrans than LOST-SAGA can. SKT1 has the likes of Boxer and LOST-SAGA, both of whom are really good players, have been top players at one point or another. Obviously, neither of them are on fire at the moment, but nevertheless, all MBCgame has to offer for LOST-SAGA is light and C, both of whom are definitely respectable players. I'm not criticising them whatsoever. However, you know, it is true that Canada has better players to practice against. Due to this, he has a versus Terran win ratio of just under 60%, just a few decimal percentiles under 60%, whereas LOST-SAGA only 36% in his TVT, which is why it's clearly not as good. The map is Destination, just so you know. Now, what I will also say about Canada that I think is really interesting is that Canada is in a real slump against Terran at the moment. Actually, both players are doing absolutely terribly against Terrans at the moment, which is another reason why I think anything could happen. And Canada had this 10-win streak at one point, versus Terran, and you may just go, oh well, he probably just rolled over 10 of the nameless faceless down. No, he fought the likes of Flash and Up Magic, and neither of them stopped this epic 10 wins in a row streak of his. And in fact, the last Terran he won against before his streak was ended by Iris, little SCV in the base there's a Marine out for Canada, so he'll be able to romp that out fairly soon. But the Iris stopped it, but his last win was against LOST-SAGA. They've only fought each other once before, and it was a win for Canada. So I think this is probably a little bit bittersweet, because it'll remind him of his fall from grace, because Canada was on fire, and then his very next matchup after beating LOST-SAGA became just the whackness versus Terran that he's had. Now LOST-SAGA, on the other hand, as I've said, he has a terrible percentage, being less than 40%. He doesn't have as good players to train against. but he has had his moments. You know, he has managed to beat Nada, Flash and Zealous, all of which have really solid TVTs, or at least have shown solid TVTs in the past. So we got the starport going up for Canata. He's going for the 1 building each build. He's not built 2 of any of the production units yet. Looks like the scouting SCV is going to go down before it gets in. And there is also a scouting SCV of Canata's back up in LOST-SAGA's base. And so we could see anything, but no, I do apologise. I said Canata hadn't built 2 of anything, but he does actually have 2 factories. That was a little mistake of mine. But was that SCV able to see the starport? I don't think it was, Internet. I think it may have missed it. Now, because he's going for this 2 factory with a starport, I can only presume that what Canata is doing is that he's going for drop tech rather than some sort of crazy early Wraith build. As you can see there, the control tower is being attached. Now, however, from LOST-SAGA, we have his barracks floating right in, but once again, just because that starport is tucked to the side quite a lot, I don't know if it's been seen. Now, just as the SCV transfer is going on to LOST-SAGA's expansion, Canata has a few vultures popping up, as he has had those 2 machine shops for a little bit. It looks as if he will have mines, as these are already speeded. So there are a couple of vultures of LOST-SAGA there. Hopefully he can defend this expansion. If his opponent's gone for this 1 base build, and he can defend his expansion and stop too many SCVs from going down. Tank fortunately there, that's really good for LOST-SAGA. He has managed to fend this off, however, the barracks is still there. Now, if he can keep this expansion for enough time to build up a decent economy, he'll basically just be able to pump tanks like you and me would not believe, and then be able to roll over his opponent. However, this drop from Canata coming in now, this drop coming in right now, and we do have siege mode. We do have a tank sieging up on this ridge, which will save the expansion. However, now the vultures are already out. It looks like it's going to be a transfer. It looks like he's going to basically elevator his vultures up onto the ridge, go back and forth with his dropship until he gets all of his forces inside the base. That is exactly what he's doing. And now this is terrible for LOST-SAGA. He needs to be able to fend this off. He needs to be able to get the siege tank in the area. Thankfully, all of the SCVs have managed to move away, so no major economic damage. Putting down quite a few mines there, but it's just not going to be enough. He'll be, oh, and no, and 1 vulture goes in right by the siege tank. This is terrible, this is terrible. The mine drag goes off and the siege tank goes down. Only those 3 vultures left for LOST-SAGA to defend this, but thankfully he does have that other siege tank in his expansion. We got the dropship of Canata just flying around as it pleases, picking things to destroy. Thankfully now LOST-SAGA has set up some forces in a defensive position, trying to stop any buildings from going up. And it looks as if LOST-SAGA has soaked this fort now, but there are just so many forces around in the area. More vultures getting dropped right by that siege tank. It looks like the mine does go off, takes down 1 vulture with it, but nevertheless the siege tanks are going down. It looks like LOST-SAGA will not be able to soak this, and now in comes a Wraith. He knows his opponent does not have an engineering bay yet, so this is just absolutely terrible for him. The expansion being absolutely mined up, being attacked away, scan being attacked, armory trying in vain to be produced, but the SCV taken down by the Wraith before anything could happen. And I think this might be for Canata. I think this early starport build with this wonderful micro vulture drop has won the game for him. He knew he couldn't get by the blockade, he knew he couldn't go in the front door when there were siege tanks there, but now, as we see, it has been broken. His economy has been shut down by the Wraiths and that wonderful vulture dropping. So I hope you enjoyed this matchup, guys. I really wanted to cast it mainly just because I wanted to show off the new MSL intro because it's so uber cool, but nevertheless, hope you enjoyed it. Much love, good night.